Hello YouTube, this Keith Kevin Ken. How you doing? How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Time again for another knife of the day. And today I've got a new one. I've got a brand new one that isn't a Spyderco. And this knife is one of those knives that I thought I would never ever see, let alone own. And I like it. This is the brand new Hinderer XM Slippy. Hinderer XM Slippy. Yeah, Hinderer has made a slip joint knife. No locking knife. Isn't that amazing? Now I'll tell you, it feels so great in the hands. Of course, I got the black DLC coated blade and the blue G10 scales. I like that combination. I really do. Slip joint, non-locking knife from Hinderer. XM. It's a smaller knife. It's a real nice knife. They try to do a lot with this knife. The blade, listen to this, Crucible CPMs 20 CV steel, so a very nice steel. Very nice steel. Again, slip joint. One thing I don't like about this, there are two knife makers I thought I'd never see a slip joint from. The first, they actually have a line of slip joints, and that's Chris Reeve Knives. I just didn't think they would do a big slip joint, but they have. They released it about 2 years ago. But Hinderer, I was really surprised. And both of those knives, the Chris Reeve knife and the Hinderer knife, is just beautiful. Now, of course, Chris Reeve does a number of gentleman folders that are slip joint, but not a big sturdy knife, and they finally did. But both of these don't have a half stop. You know, a half stop is when you're bringing down the knife and it automatically stops there. There's a stopper built in, and then you just push through it. It's not a lock, but push through it. On this knife, it doesn't stop, but there is resistance. It slows it down. Now, the reason you have a half stop is because when you're putting it down and it gives you that friction and stops the blade, it's just a safety measure. You know, you have your fingers in the way, you forget, and then it says, whoa, move your fingers. In this case, it does slow down a bit, right about there. And it's kind of the same with the Chris Reeve knife. Most slip joints, and especially the more expensive ones, because I love me a slip joint, usually have a half stop. Almost all of the Spyderco slip joints do. So let's talk about this, though. They did try to do something where they try to make it special. Now remember, a slip joint is a knife without a lock. And usually they make the slip joints usually as a two-handed opener. And you're seeing a number of companies do slip joints because in the UK and in other parts of the world, they don't allow one-hand opening knives. That's why you have Spyderco, whose entire brand is a one-hand opening hole, does a lot of slip joints. The UK PK and others, because they can sell those in Europe. And so now you're seeing a lot of other knife makers do slip joints. I bet that's why Chris Reeve did and why Hinderer, they can sell them in other parts of the world. Hinderer, though, also knew about us Americans. A lot of us like, the one-hand opener. Now, Spyderco does a lot of one-hand openers because they have holes, right? Now, some of their knives, they have a hole, slip joints. They have a hole that you can't put your thumb in. But some of them, it's a slip joint, but it still is a one-hand opener. Hinderer tried to do the combination of the two. And let me show you what that means. They send a packet that has a tool and a lug. So if you're looking at one of these on like a website to buy, they'll have the Hinderer XM Slippy, and some of them will actually have a stud on the knife and some of them won't. They're all the same. They all come with a stud that you can tighten up on your knife. If you look right there at the groove, it's not just a nail nick, it's kind of a groove, which helps with that opening where you pinch two fingers and just open it. But you see that flat surface right there? So you squeeze this in, and then it moves on that track, and you can place it anywhere you want to. And then just tighten it up with the tool right there. And then you have a thumb stud. I never once thought about putting on a thumb stud. First, I hate those kinds of thumb studs that ride on the top of the blade. I think it just ruins the thin. Look how thin this is. Fits in a pocket like crazy. But it does come with that, and you can use it. I don't think the fact that they made this track, which turns into a fuller, which frankly helps me have a grip where I open it, I don't think that ruins the knife at all. In fact, if I didn't tell you about it, you wouldn't have known the difference, right? You would have seen it. Some of you really see everything. You would have seen it. So it's designed out of the XM line. It looks just like it, except, it's a slip joint. Usually we see it as a flipper from Hinderer. The knives come with, I think, a very nice tension in the spring. Some have said it's not as strong as they'd like it to be. I like it. It's enough that it's an easy pull, so you can't make it too hard, right? That's the thing about a slip joint. If you're going to do a pull, you can't make this it too hard. I have a custom-made Penna slip joint knife, and it is super tight, but over time, it's a expensive $900 knife. Over time, though, it gets just the right tension. I think this has just the right tension. But I love how they've done this spring. You see it as like a middle part instead of how you see on a lot of slip joints, this just solid spring in the back. It's not solid spring. They usually have the liners, but they don't have that space in between the spring and the liner. I think it looks great. This does have steel liners. As you can see inside, they're all blacked out. They don't have black hardware, which is interesting to me. I would have loved to see black hardware. And the thing about the hardware also is the screws. Usually on a flipper, you'll have the pivot, you'll have these two lugs, and then you'll have one lug right here. Here they have these three little screws, I guess to keep in the G10. So it gets a little busy, right, with all these screws, but I'm okay with it. Again, a lot of things I'm okay with. I know a lot of you aren't, and that's fine. That's just my nature. I usually am like, that's fine. I love this knife. I love the idea of a slip joint. I love how this is carried through. The one thing they do have, they don't have a half stop, But they've done what Spyderco always does. They've added a forward choil. Look at this forward choil here. And I know it's right under the edge of the blade, but it's very comfortable. And the reason you want that is in case this, and it's a nice, it's held in place pretty good, but in case it goes forward while cutting, this finger stops it from coming down in the forward choil. And also it gives you a nice grip so you can do some close-up work. So it would have been nice to have blacked out hardware. Would have been nice if we didn't have so much hardware. You see the lanyard hole. And the clip is the Hinderer clip. I always like the Hinderer clip and clip plate, because you can go and buy different Hinderer clips. I've seen them with skulls on them, crosses on them, or whatever, embossed or whatever. They can replace this clip and fit into the standard slot. And they do the same thing with the plates. You can get them in all kinds of different sizes and shapes. A lot of slip joints don't include a clip, and I hate that. If it's big enough, I would like a pocket clip. Okay? Obviously, if you're one of those that believe that pocket clips and slip joints don't go together, just take off the pocket clip. This is only right hand tip up or tip down carry. But of course, it is a slip joint. So, except for the clip, if you want to remove the clip, it's just as good left hand as right hand. And like I've said, I've been just pinching and pulling open. 3-inch blade. Of course, as I told you, there is that forward choil. So it's 2.6 inches of edge, cutting edge. 7.1 inches total. I'm going to compare this to a Para 3 and a Delica. It is that size. Man, I'll tell you, look how thin it is. It does melt in your hands. And I have these fat hands, but man, it just melts and feels comfortable in your hand. The weight, 3.7 ounces. 3.7 ounces. And that's, you know, with the full liners, etc. We are looking at the brand new Hinderer XM Slippy. Yeah, Hinderer has gone out and made a very classy slip joint. It has everything you expect from a Hinderer. The design, the construction, that is just great. I, of course, have the DLC coated blade and the blue G10 handle. Nice traction on the G10 handle. I like that combination. The steel, CPM 20 CV steel, so he's got a great steel. Here it is with the Para 3. So you can see it's that, let's bring it down. It's that smaller size, all of them with that 3-inch blade. Just a super nice knife. A wonderful surprise for me. I haven't bought a Hinderer in over 3 years. And I'll tell you, I bought 3 of them the other day. And they're pricey. They're Chris Reeve prices. I bought 3 of them the other day. I will show you the other 2 later on. I've got a lot of knives I need to show you. But it's part of his new vintage series. I bought 2 knives I just love. So I'll explain the vintage series, show you those knives later on. We have a lot of knives of the day coming to you, including some automatics, some new Spydercos. My goodness gracious, another wee knife. Yeah, I've been spending. trying to deal with all this stress with new knives coming through the door. I hope you're enjoying it. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications. I've noticed only about 30% of you have subscribed. And this even from people who watch a lot. Take a couple of seconds. Hit that subscribe. By the way, this is totally a hobby for me. As you can see, the subscriber numbers are not huge. I make off of YouTube for an entire year, $300. About $100 every 4 or 5 months. So I'm getting up. I like sharing with you guys my collection. So there's nothing else behind it. They're not sponsored. I don't borrow these knives. I like having a knife talk with you guys. So there you have it. Just take a couple of seconds and subscribe. I appreciate all of you. Hey, stay safe. Stay healthy. Stay inside. And try as much as you can to be happy. Knives are making me happy. Okay? Playing 225 different versions of solitaire, discovering different versions of solitaire with completely different cards. I've been collecting card decks. Is making me happy. Watching some old DVDs. I have a huge collection of DVDs. And pulling those out are making me happy. What's making you happy? Concentrate on that, you and your family. You take good care of yourselves, okay? Keep those pockets full. Goodbye.